Welcome to New York Got Game.
What's good, everybody? Dexter Henry here for another episode of New York Got Game. We've got some good stuff to talk about this week. As the Knicks and Nets, they had their media days last week. They wrapped up their first week of training camp. And this week, we're going to see local teams in action, preseason action, that is, not yet ready for the regular season. So let's check out the schedule. Both the Knicks and the Nets, they tip off their preseason schedule on Monday night. The Knickerbockers are at the Garden hosting the Celtics, while the Nets, they visit the Lakers. The Knicks, they're also in action on Saturday night when they host the Timberwolves. Speaking of both teams, this week's episode is for my NBA bettors out there thinking about some future bets on the local teams. We are going to break down the best bets with one of my favorite people to connect with when it comes to talking betting hoops. So let's get it started and tip this thing off right now. All right, joining me on the show and joining me in studio is the lead basketball analyst for SportsGrid, the one and only James Young. James, how you doing, man?
Hey, Dexter, thanks for having me on. NBA season's right around the corner.
Right.
We got a lot of hoops that we got to discuss.
We got a lot to get into, and this is why I wanted to have you, because I love talking to you about betting with hoops, because you bring the perspective as somebody who's coached the game, somebody who trains players, who watches the game very closely like myself, but you bring a unique perspective, so I'm glad to have you here.
It's good, and I think that what's really key is when you get into sports betting, I think too many people get locked into just trends or analytics. I think understanding the game, understanding how things flow, kind of gives you a little bit more of an advantage. And there are times, Dexter, where you can beat the market if you understand more than just the numbers or the trends or the analytics.
And that's something I'm hoping we can help people here, because we're going to talk a lot about future bets around the Knicks and the Nets today. And we're going to start with some team futures for the Nets. We're going to look at some odds for division finishing position, right? Nets, their odds in terms of finishing in the division at fifth, plus 135, fourth, plus 175, third, plus 370, second, plus 1,000, and first, plus 40,000. Really great odds there. So what's the best bet, James, in terms of where the Nets will finish in the Atlantic Division? If you had to make a bet on where they'll finish in the division, which one would you go with?
When I take a look at it, I want to take a look at the Nets finishing fourth in the Atlantic Division. Why? Right off the bat, 3 of the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference reside in the Atlantic Division. When you talk about the Knicks, you talk about Philadelphia, and you talk about Boston. So when you look at it right then and there, you have 3 heavyweights, Dexter, right off the bat when you're looking at. So when you come down to it, now we're looking at, are they fourth or are they fifth? I think they're fourth because of what's going on in Toronto. You have to look at what's going on in the fact that you have a rookie head coach. You have a situation where Fred VanVleet is now a free agent who has signed with Houston. And there's always a question of what's going to happen with the trade market. Obviously, Masai Ujiri could be looking to move one of his power forwards. Pascal Siakam, Precious Achiuwa, OG Anunoby, all those guys have been rumored to be moved at some point. So when I look at a team like Toronto, I think the Nets are kind of in a step ahead of them in that rebuilding phase. That young core that they're starting to get with Nick Claxton, with Cam Johnson, and of course with Mikal Bridges, with the other ancillary pieces. I think the Nets are going to sit at fourth place at the end of the season in the Atlantic Division.
So fourth, the best bet for you there, because you know a little bit about what the Nets might be as opposed to Toronto. A lot more question marks. Will they stay with their roster? Will they move things about? I think that's good insight right there. Now, in terms of the win total line, that's something a lot of people are interested in. Currently, Nets are at 37.5 wins. Are you going over or under, James, 37.5 wins? Or is this a stay away from you? Is this something you might want to stay away from?
It's a close one, Dexter, but if you're going to go one way, I'm going to go with under 37.5 wins. If you think about the Kevin Durant injury, right, before he got traded to Phoenix, Nets went 18-24 after the injury, but 2-7 against teams in the Atlantic Division. So if we talk about, we correlate playing the Philadelphias, playing the Knicks, playing the Bostons, and even maybe struggling a couple of games against Toronto, that is a loaded schedule. So to me, if you're going to play it, not a ton of money, go with under 37.5 wins for the Nets. I think they fall just short, probably in about the 33 to 35 win range.
All right, that's not what Nets fans want to hear because they want the team to be at least in that play-in tournament range. But you hear from James going under might be the best play for you there. Now, odds for Brooklyn to make the playoffs. I think I know where you're going here because if you have them in that range, they might not make the playoffs. The odds there, James, are plus 145. That's pretty good value if you think the Nets can make the playoffs. Is betting the Nets to reach the postseason a move that bettors should make? And if you do, should you maybe sprinkle a couple dollars down? Or if you're like you, where you say under 37.5 wins, that doesn't have them there, right?
Listen, I want to make sure people understand this. This is not like Coach Young bashing the Nets, right? I just look at the fact that when you look at that Atlantic division, it's loaded. But you're also looking at, Dexter, some of the other teams that could be coming up this year. Does Orlando make that jump with that young core? Obviously, you look at Monty Williams in Detroit with that young core of Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and then you look at a team like Indiana with our old friend Obi Toppin now, lob threat to Tyrese Halliburton, the emergence of Benedict Mathurin, obviously the rookie out of Houston, Walker, they have some young pieces. So to me, when you look at that, and then you look at some of the other divisions, particularly a division like the Southeast, which has a lot of poor teams in it, particularly when you look at teams like Washington, who's going to struggle, or a team like Charlotte's going to be flat out terrible. To me, the Nets are going to fall short of the play-in tournament. Listen, they're on the rise. Could it break for them? Yes, but that's why you're seeing plus money right now for the Nets, although it being close. This is why, because they don't think they're going to make the play-in tournament. They probably fall about 11th or 12th in the East.
So you think the odds makers are looking at a lot of that and not just looking at the Nets and what they could be and the potential of the players on those teams, but also the fact that they might think, but possibly think that other teams, as you're mentioning, might rise up in the Eastern Conference. I think that's an interesting way that you have to look at it as well, too. Not just what you think of the Nets, but what can other teams do in the conference there. Okay, let's look at some player prop futures because I was checking out rebounds per game for Nick Claxton, and I think it's a pretty interesting number for him right here. It's at 9.5. Are you going over or under that number, James, for the Nets center? I think it's a really nice number for him. We know he can rebound the ball. Are you going over or under that number?
Listen, Dexter, I was a big fan of what I saw out of Nick Claxton, particularly post-All-Star break. 9.7 rebounds per game for Nick Claxton, the center for the Brooklyn Nets. When I look at Nick Claxton, and you also have to look at this, folks, styles make fights. So in the case of Nick Claxton, you may see a net team with younger, more athletic, when you got guys that run the wing. I think they want to push the pace more. So if you push the pace more, now you're getting more possessions, which leads to more rebounds. The other thing you look at is the way they may space the floor. He's going to attack the glass. He's one of the best offensive rebounders in the NBA. I like Nick Claxton, who was average, remember folks, was top 20 in the NBA this past year in rebounds per game. Nick Claxton over 9.5 rebounds this season.
All right, Nick Claxton over 9.5 rebounds this season. Could be a guy you're looking at to get double-digit rebounds, might average a double-double for the Nets. That's something they'd like to see. Great point there on the extra shot opportunities with extra possessions they might get. Now, in terms of awards, because I always like to talk about awards, this is one that really involves the Nets here. Mikal Bridges, he opened as a favorite to win the NBA's Most Improved Player Award for the 2023-2024 season. I've seen odds for him to win that award, plus 750. That's pretty tantalizing for a player that we saw make a jump. We saw scoring average go up from 17.2 to 26.1. That is a big jump, Coach. And we saw that in a good sample, 27 games with the Nets after the trade from the Suns. Do you like throwing some dollars down on Bridges to win Most Improved Player of the Year award?
Well, first things first, the Knicks done messed up that draft pick a couple of years ago
You didn't have to do that to Knicks fans. You didn't have to do it to the Knicks fans.
I had to do it. I had to do it. But Mikal Bridges, obviously fantastic once he came over from Phoenix. And Dexter, what he was able to show is just not just his ability as a 3-and-D guy, but a guy that can catch the ball, put it to the deck, create, and get to the cup. I absolutely love Mikal Bridges. He is the leader. He is the face of this Brooklyn Nets core. And I think the big thing is because of the plus money, Dexter, you can put a little bit of money on multiple guys and kind of find a way that you could win this. So when I look at it, I'll give you two guys. Mikal Bridges, how about Cade Cunningham? Cade Cunningham, who has been injured, off-injured a lot, but now was really good. The select team that helped prep the World Cup team, he looks to be back. Monty Williams has been great with young guards. Think about his ascension with Devin Booker. Think about Chris Paul when he was at New Orleans. So when I look at a guy like Cade Cunningham, and I'm a big believer in this Pistons team making the jump, I think a way to play this is sprinkle your money on both Cade Cunningham and Mikal Bridges to win Most Improved Player. And usually, Dexter, that award is usually a precursor for a guy that's going to kind of take that next step to be a superstar. Those are two guys to look at this upcoming season.
All right, another guy there beside Bridges looking at Cade Cunningham. There's a lot of talk, as you just mentioned, Coach, about Cade Cunningham, how he played with that U.S. Select team. Very impressive for a lot of people. Yeah, just wonder with Bridges, can he make an even further jump than we saw, a 9-point per game? He's getting more shots. Will he make a further jump for the Nets, and could he be an all-star this year? Definitely possible.
The Knicks are heating up.
Okay, let's move over to the Knicks, Coach, and talk about them, even though you broke the hearts of their fans bringing up Mikal Bridges there. I'm sure they didn't like that. Just like we did with the Nets. Let's look at their odds for division finishing position. 5th in the Atlantic Division, plus 700. 4th at plus 300. 3rd, plus 160. 2nd, plus 275. And 1st, plus 900. What bet would you make, James, in terms of where the Knickerbockers will finish in the Atlantic Division?
Folks, can we say this? The New York Knicks have now become one of the most stable franchises in the NBA. I mean, what is this world coming to after the season they just had with Tom Thibodeau? The thing about the Knicks is it's their continuity. They didn't have to make a lot of big changes. So when you look at what's going on in the division, I think they could finish 2nd. I think Boston is clear, the best team in the division, although I do have concerns with their front line now that they've traded off Robert Williams, and you're going to rely on Kristaps Porzingis, who hasn't shown a propensity to stay healthy for a long time. And you know what is always undefeated? It's Father Time. So Father Time will catch up to Al Horford at some point. But I think the Knicks are going to finish ahead of Philadelphia. Why? The drama in the Philadelphia. James Harden is upset. He didn't get his bag. Daryl Morey's a liar. Now he's at training camp, and we don't know what kind of ruckus this man is starting. So we took a look at that with Harden, and with the fact that Joel Embiid is secretly could he be plotting himself out of Philadelphia if he's not happy with what's going on? Dexter, I know the market says 3rd. Yeah. But I think the continued ascension of the New York Knicks happens this year. Knicks, 2nd place in the Atlantic Division.
Oh, there you go. That's a pretty good bet. Plus 275 are the odds there for the Knicks to finish 2nd that I've seen. Plus 90, you're right. The market is saying 3rd at plus 190 of that there. Look, you can still get plus money on some of these bets. It's a pretty good and interesting bet to make in terms of division finishing position. Okay, he bothered Knicks fans a little bit with the Mikal Bridges thing, but then you gave him some hope about finishing 2nd. You came back. You came back in their good graces, so that's good. Now, speaking of the Knicks, they won 47 games last season. That exceeded their projected win total for the previous season. The Knicks win total line here is 45.5, James. Over or under time? Are you going over or under 45.5 wins for the New York Knicks? Come on, give the fans some hope.
It's Christmas time, because you know what the coach thinks? We're going over this win total with the New York Knicks. I kind of explained it from the side of the Philadelphia 76ers with the drama that I think is going to unfold. But I think the key thing with the Knicks, folks, is going to be now that Jalen Brunson is year number 2 in New York. I know we're going to get into this. Randall, odd year, even year, odd year, even year. Had a great year in 23. How did he rebound in 24? But I think the key, Dexter, to the Knicks is, one, the acquisition of Dante DiVincenzo, who is a really good defender, can shoot it, can be a closer. You get a full year out of Josh Hart. Okay, let's just call them what they are. They're the Villanova Knicks, obviously with JB there as well. But I think, to me, Dexter, what's going to really get this team over the top, over this win total, is going to be the young guards. We have to see, does R.J. Barrett develop more and get that consistent jump shot? What do we get out of Emmanuel Quickly? Please lock them up and get my man his extension, because he has the best plus minus for any of the guards on the Knicks since he's been here. But most importantly, watch out for Quentin Grimes. He's had a really good summer, played with the select team, has spent time with J.J. Redick, one of the best sharpshooters in the history of the NBA. You will see a big jump. If you watch Quentin Grimes when he played at Houston, the kid was more than just a 3-and-D guy. If he's able to develop a pull-up jumper where you have to run him off the line, he's sneaky athletic and a great defender. I think the guard play of those three is going to bring the Knicks to another level. Knicks finish over their win total.
Over 45.5 wins from the Knicks. You heard it from the man, James himself. Quentin Grimes, I think he's definitely an interesting player. It'll be interesting to see how they utilize him more in the offense. Do they put the ball in his hands a little bit more when he runs with the second unit? Good notes there on the Knicks' young guards. Now, with all that being said, from Coach Young right here, there's not that much value in betting the Knicks to make the playoffs. The sportsbooks expect them to be a playoff team. But can you find some value in conference seeding? Right? The conference seeding line for the Knicks is 6.5. So if the Knicks finish higher than 6, that would be over. You can find odds at plus money or better. Are you betting the Knicks to go over or under as the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference this season?
Dexter, if I'm going to be all in and say that the Knicks are going to finish second in the division and they're going to go over their win total, then I have to like the Knicks to be better than 6. I think if you look at the Eastern Conference, obviously Boston. Obviously, you're going to look at Milwaukee. Then you start looking at, the Heat. And then you start getting into those teams of Philadelphia, Cleveland. To me, I think the Knicks are going to finish somewhere around that 5-6 spot. So you give me better than 6.5, I think they're going to be there because here's the one thing you'll know. I don't care about this whole thing about, the load management and the fines. You watch Tibbs. He plays his guys. He plays them a lot of minutes. He goes all in every game. And I think with that, I think the Knicks, to avoid to try and be in the playing tournament, I like the Knicks to finish better than 6. I think they get 5th, maybe 4th, but they're going to be in that 4, 5, 6 spot, and they will make the playoffs without playing in the play-in tournament.
All right, you got the Knicks doing. You're all in on the Knicks.
All in.
Knicks fans
all in.
Knicks fans watching the show are going to be very happy about this. You are all in for sure on that. All right, let's take a look at a Knicks player in terms of scoring averages for this season. We're going to talk about Julius Randle. Now, you talked about Julius Randle a lot there, Coach. The even year, odd year, off and on. People are going to talk about that. And Julius Randle's points per game line is at 24.3. He's coming off a season where he made second-team All-NBA for the second time in 3 seasons. So here's the question. Are you rocking with Randle over or under 24.3 points per game?
Both. I'm rocking with Randle, but not to go over 24.3 points per game. And it has nothing to do with me trying to think that there's going to be the even year Randle, the guy that was booing the fans a couple of years ago. It's not that. I think it's because of the ascension of the guards we talked about, of the R.J. Barretts, of the Emmanuel Quickleys, of the Quentin Grimeses, and the fact that I think they're going to spread the wealth a little bit more. You also saw a lot more of end of game, especially towards the playoffs. The ball started to go more in Jalen Brunson's hands down the stretch instead of Julius Randle. So tight spot, the ball's going to be in JB's hands more than it would be for Julius Randle. I think he has another great year. I just don't think he goes over 24.3 points per game, Dexter.
So going with the under there, and that brings us to the next thing. You talked about Jalen Brunson, the ball being in his hands. Fans saw that a lot during the postseason, particularly in the series against the Heat, and he was cooking in that one. But in Jalen Brunson, I want to talk in terms of assists here, Coach, because in year one with the Knicks, he averaged 6.2 assists per game. His assists per game line is at 6.1 right now. Do you see Brunson racking up more or less assists than 6.1 in year 2 with the Knicks?
When you look at JB, I think now that he's established himself, and let's be honest, he's a superstar, and I think he's proved that with his play this past year. I think teams are going to load up on JB, and I think in order to open up the lane for JB, he's going to have to get more guys involved. Everything I'm talking to you about, folks, is correlating on top of each other. What am I keep going back to? The guard play, the young guards, the Quickly, the Grimes, the Barrett, even the Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart. There's capable guys that are in that New York Knicks lineup that's not going to make JB have to go off every single night. Will he have his times he must do it? Absolutely. Jalen Brunson will finish over 6.1 assists per game because of the rest of the players he plays around and him wanting to get those guys more involved offensively.
Knicks fans have been talking about this, and they've been wondering, can Brunson get more assists? With him getting more guys involved, is that better for the team? I'm in agreement with you. I think it's better for the team. And, as you're saying, they've got the talent with those young guards to can get the ball if he's doubled and make plays, and that should be interesting for the team. Okay, so over 6.1 assists per game for Brunson this year. I want to talk about one other player, Mitchell Robinson, because he's one of the best offensive rebounders in the game. Last season, 9.4 total rebounds per game. His rebounds per game line is at 9.1, so a little bit less than Nick Claxton, who we talked about earlier, at 9.5. Are you betting Mitch over or under 9.1 boards per game this year?
When you look at a guy like Mitchell Robinson, let's be honest, folks, it's about two things. It's about foul trouble and it's about injuries. Can he stay healthy and can he stay on the floor? I think he can. We saw Mitchell Robinson in that Cleveland series basically dominate Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, using his strength and his size. Great offensive rebounder, great lob threat, great defensive rebounder, and the anchor of the defense. And I think because of those things and the importance that he lies with this franchise, Mitchell Robinson will average double-figure rebounds, and I think he'll be in the top 10 to top 15 in rebounds per game this upcoming season.
Ooh, crushing that over there. Okay. Robinson getting more boards. That's good. Double-digit rebounds. So crush that over, guys, if you're rocking with that in terms of Mitchell Robinson. Okay, last thing before I get you out of here, James, because we're going to go with a future bet here. We're going to go real far in the future. Knicks fans, you know this. They're going to be eager to see if the team can actually build off of last season's run to the conference semifinals. Now, you've been building with the Knicks. You got them second in the Atlantic. You got them over 45.5 wins. But when you're looking at what we're going to talk about here, you have to look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference. And right now, I know you've been hearing this. Some people have the Bucks and the Celtics. It's the top two teams in the East. Would you throw some dollars down on the Knicks reaching the conference finals and facing either of those two teams? Now, folks, these are some odds I've seen. Knicks versus Milwaukee in the conference finals, plus 2,000. Knicks versus the Celtics, plus 2,500 if they face in the conference finals. Do you like either the odds there? Would you throw some dollars down on those matchups happening?
I'd throw down a couple of bucks. No, I'm not talking about your 401k.
Okay.
I'm not talking about your college tuition. I'm just saying go into the mattress and find yourself a couple of bucks and play both. Why do I say this? Because you never know what's going to happen. When you look at the Celtics, we've talked about it. It's their front line depth, with Porzingis not always being healthy, Al Horford with father time. What happens in Milwaukee? Can they mesh together? Middleton only played 30-some-odd games. Fountain Youth can catch up to Brook Lopez at any point, and Adrian Griffin is a first-year head coach. There's problems in Philadelphia. So to me, when you look at it, it's worth a couple of bucks to buy into this Knicks team, folks, because of the continuity. And here's the biggest thing, folks, we haven't talked about. They have the trade assets to make if a major superstar come on. So if it's Giannis or it's Embiid, who knows who else may ask out. We don't know what's going to happen, obviously, in a place like the Clippers, where both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard could both opt out at the end of the year. Does Steve Ballmer put his chips to the table and move one of these guys at the deadline? So because of the continuity and because of the fact that the Knicks are, I think, one player away, because of the odds, I think you take a chance and sprinkle it and do it now if you think they could do it, because if they make a trade at some point during the year, you will see the odds get a lot worse. If you want to jump on, now's the time to do it.
Now's the time to get on that. Well, I think if you're a Knicks fan here, you got to be really happy with what you talked about in terms of betting around the team. And with the Nets, there's some things you can get some value on too. Coach, are you excited about New York basketball as a whole with the Knicks and the Nets for this upcoming season? Do you think this is something New York basketball fans will enjoy in the professional side of things with the men?
You know, when you think about it, Dexter, when was the last time both teams were really good? You can maybe say never. I mean, you can maybe go back to when they faced off in the 94 playoffs in round one. But we haven't had this in New York City. And here's the amazing thing, folks. It's not just the Knicks and the Nets. It's Slick Rick over there in Jamaica, Queens with St. John's. This is going to be one of the more exciting seasons that we will have in New York basketball in a long time because of the Knicks, because of the Nets, and because of St. John's. It's going to be a hell of a year.
Listen, I'm excited about it. We're going to be talking about all those teams here on New York Got Game. For the first time on New York Got Game, you've seen him on here with a bunch of things with me before around SNY New York Post, coming on and talking sports betting, particularly around the NBA. I appreciate you, Coach Young. Always good to talk to you. That is Coach James Young, Lead Basketball Analyst for SportsGrid. Go check out his work there because he does a fantastic job breaking it down like he did for us here. Coach, thank you. I'll see you again on here soon, for sure, right?
Bring it on. Hey, anytime you're ready to run it back, I'll be ready.
I'm always ready to run it back. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap for this week's show. Special thanks to my guest, James Young. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on the New York Post or SNY YouTube channels. It's time to bounce. We will be back next week with an all-new episode. For my editor, Catherine Cooper, producer Greg Thompson, and director Brianna Mutsin-Dashiaka, I'm Dexter Henry.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.